Alrighty. Well, I just checked my email. I didn't see any questions from anybody regarding the test yet, nor did I see any inputs from this on this project. My point with the project is I was going to try and put it on the blog, but well, it was too many characters. It would not take in that format. But um, that still means that before we get started on this project, probably next week we'll go final with the content. You can make some input. The other thing about it, if you have a particular situation that may not apply to the rest of the folks in the class, feel free to tell me about it, and we'll see if we can modify the assignment a little bit so that you can get some good out of it. Because the whole point is that this whole thing is to set you up, so you look at a few things that may bite you in 25, 30 years if you don't acknowledge them and start taking care of it now. So anyway, a lot of you, if you're already have a meaningful job, good on you, and that's great. But if you're a full-time traditional kind of college student, and you're waiting tables or doing something that's not what you're preparing for in terms of your career, it'd be kind of meaningless to go on a big planning exercise when your income that you're going to be concerned with in terms of planning is going to be quite a bit larger and later, more substantial. So anyway, pick a time frame, and again, I'm not absolute on the 5 years. If you're going to grad school or if you're kind of jump right in, whatever, just the earlier you start, the better. But what I want to make sure is that it's a realistic amount of money that you're dealing with, and not an artificial situation caused by you being a student at this point or something. Um, if you are already in the middle of a career, yeah, use your own details. Now, again, you can use whatever numbers you like, um, and don't even tell me whether they're actual or not. Obviously, you'll get more good out of it if you're using your real numbers. But anyway, I'm not going to share it with anybody. But this whole project can be something that you can look back and maybe you know think that you noticed a few things that could help you in terms of setting yourself up financially. It is going to require a 4 to 5 page typewritten double spaced report. That's obviously got to be readable. This isn't an English class, so I'm not too wrapped up about that. But you should have something that you're proud of, and that you can get your point across to me. Um, okay, so the main things most people when they think about finances, we're talking about if you do have kids, maybe college is usually a big hurdle. Right now, I'm kind of doing it on the fly. I had money set away, but well, other things come up, life events, whatever. So not a big deal. Everybody gets through it. Also, you have a comfortable retirement, and then protecting your self financially in case of death or serious injury. I don't want you guys to think that I'm talking about finance and I do not have my things squared away. I actually have some property overseas that could have would have been sold, but actually it's a better investment to keep that property the way it is, and work on other things. So the other thing that's interesting, and these are just things you know uh, realize that some of the unique situations that a lot of you are going to be up against is the degree that people are taking student loans. Now, granted, tuition here isn't necessarily cheap, but maybe you've got some way of financing it, or maybe where scholarship type thing, or something where it's deferred. But there are folks, say going to Harvard, Yale, that are taking huge student loans, and maybe they're going to generate the income to pay that off quickly, but maybe they're going to be paying that into those critical years where they should have been putting it in savings, or ideally would have been putting it in savings. So that is going to be something unique to this generation, because it hasn't happened in generations before where students have taken on that much debt, and it's going to change the outcomes at the end of the process. At the when you hit retirement age, you're going to find that your peers are going to be, well, it's just, I'm not trying to be very negative here, but it could be a bit of an ugly situation in the fact that there's going to be a lot more financial challenges for your generation than for previous generations. That brings up the next point about Social Security. Social Security may or may not be part of your plan, but if you look at the numbers in terms of the solvency of the program, there's going to be some changes made, and things like means tested are going to be a part of that. So, look at the amount of money, and it's, number one, not that great, and number two, you may not even see any of it if you've got a reasonable income. Also, the life insurance business, you make a plan, and things change, and you certainly don't want to leave your loved ones hanging. Also, there are investments that, via life insurance, and we'll talk about later in the program, but just personal aspect, I usually go with term just because it's easier to figure out. I know what my liabilities are, that if I was to, go away tomorrow, I'd want to certainly cover those, not leave folks with debts. Some of the more complex products, we'll talk about it, but see right there, when you start talking about complexity of a product, it usually takes a salesman, certified salesman, but somebody to explain it to you. Well, those folks aren't working for free, so now we're talking commissions, and maybe it's a little more complex, and maybe whatever. I'm just saying, most people tend to go with term life insurance, but there's whole life and all these other products. But those are more complex investment products, and upsides, downsides in terms of the benefits for you. You're going to have an investment portfolio. If you look at the stock market over time, I'm not talking the fluctuations, it's pretty attractive. Bonds, mutual funds. Mutual funds are nothing but a collection of stocks, and bonds are obligations, municipal bonds and other types of bonds, commercial bonds. So we'll talk more about that in later parts of the class, but this is where you have to decide whether you're, what your appetite for risk is, number one, and then also do some calculations to see where you want to be and whether you can get there with the different investments. So there's a mutual fund guide type thing, a thing that just helps you, compare mutual funds accurately, because a lot of times there's management fees, there's other fees built in, and there's also the yield. And anyway, again, these things are meant to be sold, and so they'll try and structure to make it sound the most attractive. So a spreadsheet that talks about all these other fees, and you can keep track of it. It's kind of like comparing banks, where you're looking at, well, this one's cheaper than this thing, but if something else, it gets more expensive. So you can look at that. There'll also be some websites too. I'll try and stay away from most of the big commercial ones, but there's some, pretty helpful retirement calculators and some other things in there that will help you with those sorts of investments. Yeah, and then also, I did touch a little bit there on real estate. Again, I do like real estate as an investment because, number one, you get to live in it, and number two, there's some built-in tax benefits and the capital gains, like we talked about last week. If there are no really other investments where you can have those sorts of capital gains and actually get to keep them all. Live in a house 2 out of the past 5 years, whatever capital gains you get, up to $250,000 for you, and another $250,000 for your spouse, you get to keep. That's huge. If we get back to that kind of market where it's really appreciated. In today's market, yeah, you'd have to own quite a house to generate $250,000 worth of profit. At least different areas. But again, maybe Alaska is better in that regard, in terms of not being quite as volatile as some areas. If you plan a career in the military, again, this only applies to a few folks, but you need to come up with a plan. Are you staying in? Are you getting out? What you don't want to do is get out at 16, 17 years, skip the retirement. But anyway, those of you who, if you were in that situation and you stay until 20, what are you going to do? The time to think about your career afterwards is not at the end. I've said there, and then the tax deferred compensation. When you're looking at a field, when you're looking at employers too, it's not only the salary, but it's also the nature of what benefits they offer. The 401k, 401b for educational type things, TSP, military, IRAs, all those type of things. We'll learn more about that, but they're all tax-deferred investment vehicles. I'm not really going to approach the health care part of it in terms of benefits, because that is going to change dramatically. I mean, right now, basically you have nobody in favor of it. You have Republicans who are obviously dead set against it, and then you have Democrats who would really prefer a single payer program. So the current iterations of what they're talking about with Obamacare, it's really not worth planning about, because it's not going to probably be implemented in its current form, at least not for very long. So anyway, I'm not, preaching here, but I'm just saying to know what that program is going to look like 5-10 years from now is beyond the scope of what we can reasonably plan for. So, okay, so big picture, let me see, I think I've got one more. So the goal of this project is get you thinking about some of these issues. And again, time, value, and money. If these things escape you, and all of a sudden everybody's going to end up financially literate. They wanted me to be on a radio program talking about financial literacy yesterday, and anyway, one reason or another, I opted out. But my point is, people become financially literate by the time they hit retirement age, but by the time they learn the skills, they learn the knowledge, it's too late to act upon. They know what they should have done, but I'd rather put you in a position to act upon it and get there now. And again, it's not all about money, but if you're dirt poor, you're going to be obsessing about money, and you don't want to be in that sort of vulnerable position, especially with the uncertainty that's ahead of us in terms of long-term economic stuff. So anyway, get back to me with inputs. I will put this out in sort of a final form assignment next week. Obviously, it's not going to change drastically, so if you want to do a little bit of research, a little deep thought on what you're going to do, go ahead. I think December 4th was the time frame that I came up with in terms of when it should be due, so that's at least a week before finals. So trying to avoid button it right up against finals, but then again, some of the material that we're going to be covering in the class, we won't cover until that point. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. You can use the blog thing. I don't know. I thought this was going to work in terms of blog, but then obviously limitations in terms of the characters in there. But if you have any discussion items, or if I see a bunch of emails, I'll try and repost them out there just so I can get your inputs. And again, if you want to personalize the project, go right ahead. This is a scoreable event, obviously, in terms of the homework, but it's also a project for you to do some good while you can. All right, and that'll complete it for office hours here.